This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 836 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is an excerpt from the driving radio show. Dr. Wendy Ying and Glenn the Geek take on a list of common riding instructor analogies, and Wendy translates them into driving analogies. And we'll get right to our tip after this important message from EquiSketch Apps.
Glenn the Geek here. The life of horse person is hard enough, and we all hate doing the required paperwork, and unfortunately many of us never get around to it, and it just piles up on our desk. That is about to change thanks to the EquiSketch Records app for your iPhone or iPad. My wife and I use it to track our horses, and we absolutely love this thing. EquiSketch Records is the most thorough and complete equestrian records app on the market today. We love this app because you can track your farrier work, your dental, your coggins, medicines, worming, and so much more. And you can get reminders on your device when all of these things are due. You'll never forget a worming or shots or farrier visit again. But it not only tracks your horse, you can also manage your horse shows, including individual events. You can manage riders, including lessons and memberships, and so much more. And you can sync it between your iPhone and your iPad, and all of this for the price of a couple of cups of coffee from Starbucks. Search for EquiSketch Records in the iOS App Store or go to equisketch.com. That's EquiSketch.com. EquiSketch.com.
Yes, I need to practice warming up my brain. My brain needs a lot of warm-up.
Well, I'm going to warm it up right now because we're going to do a fun segment. Dr. Wendy Ying is taking the week off, but Coach Wendy Ying is going to be here, and you've certainly taken enough lessons in your life, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you've taken riding lessons and driving lessons, so you'll relate to this. On HorseNation.com, they did an article called 10 Crazy Analogies Instructors Make. So these are the things that riding instructors say to their students all the time that are analogies for things that you're supposed to do or not do as a rider. I'm wondering if you can correlate these to driving.
I'll try.
All right, so you have to translate it for drivers, all right? That's your goal. So we'll see how you do. So there's 10 of these. You ready for the first one?
I'm ready.
All right. The first one is squeeze like a tube of toothpaste. Have you heard that one before?
Well, I have, but that involves your legs.
Yeah, well, what would you do as a driver to squeeze like a tube of toothpaste?
You're trying to squeeze like a tube of toothpaste to either like stay on, like you're sitting trot, or you like trying to squeeze them forward. So, I mean, I guess with driving, you edge them forward with your whip. But I think maybe in this case, this would suit people that come from riding and learn to drive, and they're always squeezing like a tube of toothpaste. So I guess I would tell them to.
That's a hard one. You're right, because of the legs. That's a hard one.
Because you don't have legs, so you do have to like push them forward.
Right.
But I guess the only thing that's similar is you'd have to tell them not to use their legs.
Right.
When they're trying to drive. Because you know what I do sometimes when I'm driving, especially two-wheel carriages? I catch myself holding on to the bottom of the seat with my calves. Like I'm squeezing the bottom of the seat like a tube of toothpaste when I get really nervous, which then does really translate to the horses in your arms.
That's sort of like when you're driving with someone else and you're putting the brake on and you're the passenger. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do that. I do that too. Yeah, definitely.
Now, this one might have a correlation. The second one, put your ears behind your shoulders.
Your ears behind your shoulders. Yeah, well, you know what? That's what Keedy always says. That's the first thing Keedy always says. Sit up, sit back.
Sit up, sit back. Same thing.
Sit up, sit
put your
back.
ears behind your shoulders. And it really does apply. Your ears behind your shoulders applies to driving too.
Yeah, and I think also in driving, your upper body position is more important than riding even, because that's all the communication you have with your horse.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, if you're slouching, then yeah.
And I've noticed with me, like, I can't keep my, like to have soft hands, right? You have to have, like, your pecs can't be all tight. And when you get nervous, you kind of like your shoulders kind of roll in and you kind of sit forward a little bit hunched.
That's true.
Then you can't give with your hands. And I have this new carriage I've been driving in that actually does not have a driver's wedge. And I thought at first, that's not going to be good. So I was going to make a driver's wedge, but I didn't. And it kind of sits me back like I kind of have to sit back with my shoulders. And I've realized I'm driving much better.
I always wondered about that with the wedge because it would tend to want to put your shoulders forward.
Yeah, and that is it. When I go into the carriage with the wedge, I kind of sit a little bit perched. Mm-hmm. And the theory of the wedge is you're supposed to it's supposed to put your pelvis in a better alignment. Like Dr. Kyle loves the wedge because it's better for your lower back, and you have more like you can put your feet on the ground and have some purchase. But I think for me, in my marathon carriage at least, the seat is actually very low. And it's kind of like I'm almost sitting on the floor with my feet out in front of me, like kayaking.
Okay, yep.
That's the way that seat is made, which those marathon carriages want your center of gravity to be as low as possible. I think that's why it's made like that. But I've realized it's forcing me to sit up, sit back, put my ears behind my shoulders. And I am driving a lot better because if you do that yourself, if you put your ears behind your shoulders, you can feel like your pecs opening up.
It's one of the reasons I sit on an exercise ball when I record, because I find I'm more alert. I sit up straighter and I'm more alert when I do the shows.
That's a good idea.
When I'm sitting on the exercise ball, because you're constantly balancing, and you're you're forced to sit up. You can't slouch like you do in a chair.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so that's what I've always done, is sit on an exercise ball when I record. Mm-hmm. Like right now, I'm on my ball. I'm bouncing.
I'm going to get a ball because you know what? I do feel like in my chair, even though my chair is comfortable, I kind of sit forward on it.
Any sporting goods store, you just got to get one to your size. You won't need one as big as me.
All right.
You'll be rolling off the back.
I won't be able to touch the ground. I need the pony size.
You need the pony size. That's right. Speaking of which, that's the next one. They have a picture of a pony here, which is funny. A Thelwell pony. Get those back legs moving. Fluff him up.
Well, Peter Tischer was always yelling at me about this. He used to always say, "Do you think that looks good?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think it looks great." He's like, "Well, you can't see at all." Because you do have to get their back legs moving. I haven't heard fluff them up, but that's a good way to think about it because you don't want them just diving on their forehand. You want them to bend their joints and move their back legs forward, but like open up their front end too.
I kind of think almost in a way that's harder in a carriage. One, depending on the carriage, you can't almost see their back legs and what they're doing. Yeah. And then two, when you're sitting on them, you have a better idea whether they're using their back end or not.
Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah, you can feel it. You feel it. So, I almost think that's harder in a carriage.
I think so. I think it's hard. And some people can feel it in the reins, and that's another reason why to have this like very soft contact, but have a contact with the reins so you can feel it, and feel if they're plowing on their forehand or they're really like carrying themselves. So fluff them up is a great way to think about it because you don't want them to take longer steps. You want them to take more energetic steps.
Fluffier steps.
Fluffier steps. Fluff, 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 fluff.
See, we're getting new terms we can start using in driving out of this.
Yeah.
I love this one. This is a great one. Ladies, point your headlights where you want to go.
Yes, that is something that we do say in driving. Although Mickey Bowen, she says, drive the bus. She's like, you drive in the bus. And that's like a great, like when it all goes horribly wrong, I just think, okay, I'm driving the bus. I'm driving the bus. Because you think when you're driving the bus, you're holding that great big steering wheel, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you just have to look where you're going and you have to use your whole body to drive the bus. And you don't want to take any sharp turns when you're driving the bus. You just want to glide around the corners. So, but you do have to point your headlights to where you're turning when you're driving the bus.
And I think we all know what we're talking about there. Guys can do the same things. It's just not as dramatic or as exciting.
No.
That's all I'm saying on that topic. Next, America's horse husband here. Imagine a thread is pulling you up to the sky. Again.
Oh, I really like this analogy because I've done some centered riding.
Yes.
And I have been trying to put together a centered driving clinic because I think that all the centered riding things, because there is a person that does centered driving, but all the centered riding things can really come into play with driving also, because you're making these visualizations for body awareness. So instead of someone saying sit up straight, like, yeah, you can yell to me to sit up straight all day. But if you imagine a thread's pulling you up to the sky, you tend to pull the back of your head up to the sky.
Right.
And you
right.
lengthen your spine.
Right. That's Sally Swift, of course, centered riding, and
Right.
Jennifer was a devotee of hers for years. And my
I
wife,
didn't know that.
Yeah, she actually, the way Jennifer taught for the years that she did it, that's why we call her Coach Jen, as she taught thousands of students, is she did a centered riding type of teaching. That's what she did.
Yeah.
And she was always aware of where you were in relation to the horse, and really providing those principles is what she taught. And a lot of the centered riding instructors, and this works for driving especially, a lot of the centered riding instructors, including the instructors that she had all the way back to Sally Swift, way back in a clinic or two. They would do ground. Your first day was always on the ground with reins and other people being the horses, and they would spend a lot of time on ground work and getting used to the reins and reinmanship and the whole centered riding concept before they ever got on the horse. And I think there's a lot of driving instructors that do that as well.
Yeah, I think that's so good because, and especially if we're riding, you don't pull on them when you're posting, or like you understand what the reins mean.
Right. Well, that was half of them. Let's do the other half next week. What do you think? That was fun. Was that fun? I had fun.
That was really fun.
Yeah, so we'll do the other half of those next week. In the meantime, we are going to call it a day. We appreciate you being here on the Driving Radio Show. Of course, you can find all of our show notes at drivingradioshow.com. And Wendy, you have a new website. Tell everybody about it.
I do. It's I changed my website over to drwendyying.com. And it still has a lot of the same blog posts and the things about Chinese medicine, but it's expanded a little bit so that there's a lot more about chiropractic, and Dr. Kyle puts stuff up about chiropractic. And there's some great links that every time I do a Chinese medicine segment, I do a blog post there so you can get some more information, and you can look at more links and get some more in-depth info, because I know that sometimes I do ramble on and on. So if you want more of that, you can go to the page. And if you don't, you don't have to. But it talks a lot about the different therapies that we offer. And there's a lot of good videos about laser. I use the laser a lot and I really love it. And I think sometimes people don't realize the power of the laser. So these videos are really great. I have some great videos from the Companion Laser Company.
And that's a wrap. To listen to more tips on everything from barn care to websites for horse people, just go to horsetipdaily.com and look for the topics drop-down menu on the left. And don't forget to support our sponsors here on Horse Tip Daily, because they make these podcasts possible. This podcast has been brought to you through the generous support of Equisketch.com. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.